There are a myriad of microaggressions ranging from micro assaults, micro insults, micro invalidations. And some examples, for instance, of micro invalidations are colorblind statements. And really, this is where a person makes statements that suggest that race and ethnicity doesn't really matter. And they ignore the unique experiences of other individuals and really their different backgrounds. And some examples of these are, I don't see color, you and I are the same. But you also then have denial of racism as a micro invalidation, for instance. And this is where a person dismisses or the denial of the existence of racism altogether. And this is where you hear statements like, get over it, apartheid happened a long time ago. And then there's also a micro invalidation that's called cultural appropriation. And this is where people adopt various elements of other people's cultures without fully comprehending or understanding them, right? And 9 times out of 10, often leading to trivialization or making them insignificant. There are also examples of micro assaults. For instance, these would be racial slurs. And this is where a person uses derogatory terms or racial slurs to address someone's based on their race and ethnicity. You also have what's called explicit discrimination, and this is where a person engages in discriminatory practices or actions based on somebody's identity. An example of this would be refusing to serve under or work with a person because of their gender or their sexual orientation. And in addition, there are also instances where ethnic or racial jokes are made as part of micro insults or assaults. And this is really telling jokes that perpetuate stereotypes that make fun of someone's ethnicity or race. An example really is making jokes that rely on racial stereotypes during a conversation in a workplace setting. And then you also have homophobic or transphobic remarks. And essentially, this is where a person makes derogatory comments about someone's sexual orientation. An example of this would be, for instance, a person that comes from or identifies as part of the LGBTQI community, where a question is posed that says, who is the man in this relationship? Or if you're a leader and you are leading a bunch of women in your team and you refer to them as girls and you say the girls in my team, right? Could be seen as a micro assault as well. Those are some examples of micro assaults. And they are behaviors that really are designed to be rude and insensitive or derogatory towards another person. Examples of these are backhanded compliments. When you say to a person, you're very articulate for someone from your background. Another example would be stereotype reinforcement, where you say to a person, you must be good at sports because of your ethnicity. Essentially, this assumes that a person's abilities or interests are based on the stereotypes associated with their race and their ethnicity. And then another example of a micro insult would be assuming affiliation, where you ask an Asian person, for instance, where are you really from, right? Are you Chinese or are you Korean, based on the way that they actually look. Then you also have gender-based micro insults. An example of this would be, you're pretty strong for a girl. And essentially, this undermines the person's abilities by qualifying their strength based on gender. You also have age-related micro insults. An example of this would be calling an older colleague a grandma or grandpa in a professional setting. This can be dismissive or undermine the professional standing of a person based on their age. Another example of a micro insult would be assuming disability. An example is offering unsolicited assistance to somebody with a disability without them asking for help, or making a comment such as, you seem okay for a person with a disability. Another example is misgendering, and essentially this is where you refer to someone using incorrect pronouns intentionally, right? Or consistently after being corrected. A person tells you what their pronoun is, you continue to dismiss that and call them something else. It's important to recognize that these subtle forms of insults and really just to be mindful of our language and behavior to create a more inclusive and respectful environment around us. And it's important that we create and promote awareness and educate ourselves about potential micro insults, because this is key to fostering an understanding and preventing of unintentional harm to another person.